Welcome, everybody, to the Sales Unscripted podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Brian Neal.
And I'm the other one, Margaret Henny.
Here. So you got your hair cut.
I did.
You did. It looks awesome. It looks fantastic.
Brian.
I was waiting till the recording was on, so I got credit. That was it. I just waited.
You did. You got credit. Well done,
It's
friend.
fantastic. Do you feel good? Do you feel like
I love it.
lighter? Do you feel like
I am a short hair girly. I did not
Are
know
you
this.
really?
I didn't know
How
it.
long? I've known you for 8 years, 10 years.
But I've never
You've never been a short-haired person.
No, I always was like, I wanted long, beautiful, curly, like locks.
Huh.
And I was trying to make it happen. And here's the thing, you just have to embrace what God has given you.
Yeah, right.
And this is what he gave me. And so when I embrace it, I cannot tell you how many compliments I get on my hair. And I never did before when I was trying to like do the other thing.
That's funny.
So I know it worked out.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you found yourself.
I did.
After all these years.
I know.
There you are.
Just on
Well,
the opposite side of 40. I turned 40 on Saturday.
It's Saturday?
Uh-huh.
Let's go.
I know.
I love it.
I know. So
How you
just
feeling
under the
about that?
wire.
Feeling
Not good.
Yeah, why
Not
is
good.
that?
Well, okay, this is just me. I know a lot of people really like, they love their birthday, they love celebrating, they embrace it. I love that for you. And I love celebrating other people's birthdays, but I've just never been into my own. I don't know what it is.
This is the year.
Like, I know. Okay, maybe we'll turn it around.
So we have, is this our first ever guest on Sales Unscripted? Maybe our second?
Maybe our second guest. Yes. And certainly we've done one in person and now
I forgot about that.
We're doing
We're
it
high tech,
like virtually, and it's so fun.
So fun. So we are thrilled to death to be joined with our good friend who we love, Liesel Mertes. Liesel, we're going to talk about empathy today because that's your specialty. Welcome to Sales Unscripted podcast.
I'm glad to be with you, but Brian, I do feel a little slighted. I got bangs since you last saw me.
Geez,
and I also turned 40 this
did.
year, and there's been no comment.
Let's go.
You did get bangs. Dang it. I pride myself on noticing. I'm sorry, Liesel. Doggone it.
I'm not going to take it personally or hold it against you for the duration of our conversation.
Okay. Also for my own,
I'll leave now. Bye. See you guys.
For my own selfish needs too, before because I'm really excited about this topic, especially with someone who is like such an expert in it.
Yes.
But okay, how's 40 going? Like help me.
Good question.
Pump me up.
Good question.
How did you deal with turning 40 this year?
You know, I have a teenage daughter and a teenage son, and 40 as contrasted to teens and 20s. I love being so much more comfortable in what I am about. And I also was able to say, you know, at this stage of life, my friends are just low drama people. Like I've gone through that curating, and there are great things like as I deal with some of the aches and pains and even the exercise patterns where I'm like, I used to be able to do that, no problem.
Right.
That I'm not loving, but I do love what you can get to at 40 with kind of like, this is me. Like I'm still evolving, but I like who I'm becoming. So I don't miss that about younger versions of myself.
That's great. Okay.
Going
good.
deep fast, you
Good.
two.
I know.
It's really good. I like it.
I mean, would you expect any less from her? Of course we're going.
No, well, both of you too. You two are peas in a pod. I literally might leave. I'm just saying. You two are just, you're so good on this topic. This is good.
That's right.
So Liesel, tell the listeners of Sales Unscripted podcast a little bit about what you do for a living.
Yeah. My company is Handle with Care Consulting. And what I do is I help organizations scale up both their people and their processes to better give support during disruptive life events. I love talking about human-centric skills like empathy is just that. They're not personality traits. They are skill sets that we all can and should be growing in because it creates unforgettable client and customer experiences, and also unforgettable experiences for the people internal to your organization.
Me likey. That good? Margaret's loving
this. You're like, this is right up your alley. So I'm like, let's go.
So start with, if you would, please, just a little story on how you came, because most people, I could be wrong here. Hang on. She's catching up.
Oh, no.
How was that?
We're back.
I literally have no idea. So we've got a little thing. So we'll keep. It's easy pickup. It's good stuff.
Okay.
We're supposed to be running on an Ethernet cable that apparently isn't working. So now we're on the Wi-Fi to work, but we're okay.
Hopefully it's great.
We're still rolling.
Okay, great.
So we're good.
Yeah.
So we'll start again. I'll ask the question again. We were vamping.
Oh,
now we'll just come in and say it. So we lost our internet for a minute. We lost Liesel. And so then Margaret starts talking and she keeps talking like we're still in the episode. I'm like, well, it'll come back. And she goes, oh, well, I'll just stop. I'm like, what? She's like, well, I was vamping. I'm like, what is vamping? I had no idea what vamping was.
I'm surprised because you're like a performer of sorts, right? Like,
yeah, but I'm not a theater kid. You were a theater kid.
Yeah.
So let's get back to what we were talking about. So we're talking to Liesel Mertes, Handle with Care Consulting, one of our dear friends. We love Liesel and we love what she does. And then we're going to talk about how you got into what you're doing now, because I think most people, could be wrong, don't aspire when they're young kids to become an empathy at work coach, but maybe they do. I don't know, but it doesn't seem like something super common.
No,
Really
I wanted to be maybe Secretary of State or
Oh,
President of the United States, which, as
Holy
we're talking on
shnikes.
election day, I think
We
they
are.
are still write-in ballots available.
See,
If you're looking
If you're
for
looking
Liesel
for a
Mertes.
third-party candidate.
Liesel Mertes.
That's
Liesel.
right.
I wish I would have known. I would have written you in.
Yeah,
I
you
wrote.
could
I
have-
wrote in Kurt Signetti, who's the head football coach at IU. Since I'm an IU football guy,
I love it.
I would have been better off with you.
Man, next time around.
Next time. Yeah.
No, I did not grow up actually thinking that I would do workplace empathy. I studied political science, but what happened was I was in my first year of an MBA program, and I was a little bit of a non-traditional candidate. I had 2 small children at home. I was pregnant with my third, so I was going to, classes, heavily pregnant, and it ended up that daughter, Mercy Joan, our third, she died after just 8 days of life. So she was born in my second semester on February 15th. She died February 22nd. And it's hugely impactful in my story and the story of our family. It's still, we still feel her as a profound part of our family. It also, as it relates to this work that I do, was an experiential and also observational seeding of the work that I do, because I knew myself, I'm someone with a lot of capacity. I'm a high achiever. I oftentimes experience myself that way. And I wasn't just ready to bounce back or okay. I actually needed a fair amount of support. There were some people who were great and there were some people who were terrible. And it also had me just structurally reflecting on this program that's designed to, send out the next generation of managers, and how we weren't talking about that at all over 2 years of what it is to experience disruptive life events. So that was a first inflection point. There were things that came later. I have a son who has had to have some open heart surgeries at Riley, and it also let me step into hearing about a lot of other people's disruptive life events and saying, how are you supported? How are you not? And putting together a picture of our current care systems and the opportunities that were there.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Just amazing. Yeah. And I know you pretty well. Would you say you were born naturally empathetic?
Well, it's interesting. I would say some people are familiar. Some people love it or hate it. In language of something like a personality intake, like the Enneagram, I'm an Enneagram. I identify as an Enneagram type 3, which means I'm actually very good at reading the emotions of other people.
Yeah.
Not always as self-aware. That's been an incredible, you can go to sleep to your own emotions because you're in efficiency and people-pleasing mode. So part of that grief journey was actually having to have a hard stop to be like, what am I actually feeling right now? I'm not just feeling behind or like I have things to do. What is that emotional journey? And I think that just added an experiential basement to the care that I already was able to do. And I'll tell you a quick story. Just because you can read the emotions of others doesn't mean that you always respond well. There's an avatar, we'll probably talk about this later, called Fix It Frank, which is a default posture for me and a number of other people who succeed at work. And I can remember it coming out one time. I was back from college, and all the things when you're back from college. I'm driving with my mom, and she was sharing this story. She was on the board of this school, and it was just going so badly. And she was telling me about just this awful board meeting. And my first response was, well, have you tried actually just talking with them or looking at the bylaws? And I looked over, and she had just gone completely silent, and she was crying, and she was not talking to me for the whole rest of the way home. And the observer in me was like, that went really badly, really badly. There's probably a way that could go better. And I remember it was like a light bulb moment. I thought, she needed to know that I cared about her, and I do care about her, but I didn't say that first. I just went to trying to solve her problem. And I think that was how the stuff hit the fan. And so even before any of that hard stuff happened, I was optimizing and improving and being like, that went really badly. I think that could have gone better.
And by the way, I didn't say this. That's a great story. Isn't it funny how we get all these great stories, tragedies of other people? Like, that's an awesome story. Yeah. What a great story, making your mom cry. Da, 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 da. You have a question?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for sharing that incredibly personal story. And it sounds like it's one that you have to share as part of your work all the time. And so I'm thinking, she's out here keeping it together, telling one of the most awful things that happened to her, and then continuing on with the conversation.
Yeah.
So, like, thank you for doing that. My heart goes out to you. Clearly, you've practiced that, and gotten more comfortable or used to it. I guess, one of my questions too is, do you think this is something that is like, I think as Americans, we can be particularly like, we don't love to think about what could go wrong, right? It's, and it's, we don't have great time off for maternity and paternity and sick leave. And, I think that probably plays into some of the plans that you have for people, but certainly we never think about what happens when there's a death in the family. What happens when, you get sick yourself, or what happens, all those sorts of things. Is that uniquely us in America? Is that everybody? Like, have you taken any inspiration from other cultures for your work?
It's a great and insightful question. There is something profoundly American to it, in that we get to have a bias towards progress. I mean, that's the whole American ethos, right? It's always bigger, better, faster. That's also the rate of mechanization worldwide. But we have lost cultural touchstones with grief, because there's so much that we can make better. We don't have perfect hospital systems and all kinds of things, but there's a lot that we can make better. And we've also sanitized death. 150, 200 years ago, someone would die, you would lay them out like in your parlor, and the community would walk by. And even as a little kid, you were seeing that. And it's not like there was a ton of avoidance and not great things. There wasn't some like yesteryear that was perfect. But if we feel an impoverishment, it's because we don't have that in the same kind of way. There was a woman, Gail Gold Nichols. She works at IU in student services. She was a great support to me in my graduate program. She is Jewish, and she talked about, in practicing religious Judaism, you would wear a torn lapel for I think the first 30 or 60 days. And it was this visual marker to everyone else. I'm still grieving. Or you think like Scarlett O'Hara in Gone with the Wind, where she wore black. And again, there weren't, I'm not saying that was perfect, but it was a cue to everybody else that they weren't like, how are you doing? Did you see the Colts game? And they're like, you've had someone die. I should treat you a little differently. So yeah, that's kind of a mosaic of an answer. There are also different cultures. I mean, if you have ever witnessed a funeral in Middle Eastern cultures, just the wailing and there's an embodied self that gets brought to it. And we're just a lot more cognitive. There's something definitely that is lost in the integrated self with that.
Yeah. Gosh,
interesting stuff.
We could I could pick your brain forever. And then I sometimes have to remind myself, we technically have a sales podcast, Margaret. So I'm like,
it's okay. You know what?
Okay.
But we're holistic salespeople around here.
Totally. Yes. Yes.
And by the way, this one is go ahead.
But
do you want to pivot into sales?
Well, what I was thinking is, you said when you started off, you had talked about how having this empathy is a skill. And I think that's something that will resonate with salespeople, because they're like, how can I skill up? How can I get better? We're always talking about tangible takeaways. What can I do? And sometimes when we think about things like empathy, it's just a little bit more heady, where you're like, how do I do empathy? And so I'm interested to hear what sort of like tactics you can share that we might be able to share with our listeners, and also myself.
Well, and It's my firm commitment as a trainer, as a consultant, anytime I work with organizations, if I'm just giving them things to think about, I will have failed in my role.
Yeah.
Like, empathy is something that we consider, but it's something we metabolize. It comes out in our actions or it doesn't. So my goal is always, what are things that you can do right after you listen to this? Let me give you a few. Let me also tee it up with like the overarching theme. One thing that I really start with is understanding we all have things that we already bring to any disruptive life event. I term it like almost a first responder. You arrive on the scene with the tools you have in your toolkit. Question is, are those tools like just what Uncle Jerry said to you, your first funeral with big boys don't cry, and that's all you got? Or are there better things to put in there? Because we're grief adverse, we're uncomfortable. Let's look in the toolkit. I explain that to people through the lens of these empathy avatars. Like maybe you're a cheer up Cheryl, you're always just trying to make it better, or you're a Frank, like, well, how can we pivot out of this? What's the next step? A buck up Bobby or Barbara, like we're just straight ahead. So that's a foundation of some understanding in some really practical things. There are a number of salespeople that, man, they have to have a lot of positivity to keep going, to keep pushing. It's something that draws people to them. People like that about them. When that positivity is over deployed in disruptive life events, it comes off as really tone deaf.
Totally.
Here, I'll ask you guys, what are some cliches that people have said to you when you've gone through something hard?
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that.
There's a plan.
There's a plan. Tomorrow's another day. It's always darkest before the dawn.
Yeah, right.
God needed another angel. If it's something that you've heard like a dozen times before,
I have one
probably
that I say.
Going to ring hollow.
What is it?
There's one that I say. You know what I say to people?
Huh.
I say, well, she's got all the answers now, doesn't she? She's got all the answers.
Yeah.
But that's what I say. But it's my way because that's my belief.
Yeah.
What a cool thing. You got all the answers.
Right.
But it may not be very empathetic that someone's like, fuck that. I want her back here.
Yeah.
I don't want her to have all the answers. By the way, we're not,
totally.
we're what do you call it? Uncensored.
We're
we can
uncensored.
cuss on this one. We can't cuss on the ASP one. So no probs. So
I'm so free now.
So exactly. Can we redo this? Can we roll it back?
Actually, with that in mind, so this actually ties in just to what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Don't bypass or lose sight of just the fact of acknowledging that something is really hard or tragic. Like people actually don't foundationally need to be cheered up. They can sniff that out. So this will get to the cursing part. I can remember there's this, we're at church. There's this visiting pastor. It was within maybe 3 months of Mercy dying. And just whatever he said felt really meaningful to me and to Luke. So we went up to talk with him afterwards. We're like, hi, I really appreciate that. And we mentioned our daughter died just a few months ago. And he just looks at us and he goes, well, damn it. That's just one of the worst things I've heard all month. And it just felt really resonant of it is like, it is that bad. And so when it comes to just, you don't want to be a silent Sam. You don't want to say nothing or just change the topic. And you don't want to go into cheer up mode and just work on like listening. Does somebody sound angry? This is called emotional mirroring. Do they sound angry? Do they sound sad? Just say it back to them. That sounds infuriating.
Yeah.
That sounds so sad. And also, if you don't know what to say, I mean, I know this is a blind zebra thing as well. Just naming the elephant in the room. I don't even know what to say right now.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Thank you for telling me.
Yes.
Or I'm glad you trusted me with that.
Yes.
Another really great, just actionable thing, especially within your team, like do this for people in your organization, not just for your clients. Because I think sometimes when salespeople grow in empathy, it's all outward focused. Like, don't forget your teammates as well. They also need care. That keeps you there. But especially, we're recording in November.
Yes.
Holidays.
Yeah.
Anybody who has lost someone or not someone die, maybe their divorce was finalized.
Yeah.
Maybe they had to downsize. Maybe it's been a crappy year because their partner lost their job. I literally keep a running note in my phone. I abbreviate it RO for reach out. It's a couple of days ahead of major holidays, Mother's Day, Father's Day, Thanksgiving, Christmas. You can add more to that because somebody will have a parent die in April and I want to remember, and there's no way I'm going to remember. So I just add it to the running note. And then it's not fancy. It doesn't even have to be profound. Just, I imagine today is a complex day for you. I'm thinking of you. Or if you like funny whatever your style is.
Yeah.
What that differentiates you as a person who has paid attention is huge. And don't do it just for scoring the points, but don't do it apart from that. And the more that you see the effect, the more it becomes natural and something that you want to do, not that you're just going through the motions of.
This is such good sales advice.
Totally.
I will tell you too, I've been the recipient of one of Liesel's reach out emails. When I had the Damar Hamlin issue. So Damar Hamlin died in front of me and then got revived. And it was very difficult for me to go through. I think it was a year later, about the same time, I get this email from Liesel. And at that point, it's been like a year, whatever it was. She said, hey, I know we're about the time when you had that incident with Damar and thank God everything happened. I was just thinking of you. I know. I'm like, good God, that felt so good. I can't tell you how good that felt. And then what's crazy, and I was there this weekend. And I got to talk to the first responders in Cincinnati. I had a game at the Bengals, and it was the first time I got to see, and I cried in the meeting before the game. And I'm like, I just want to tell you, when I say that I appreciate what you do, it means something different because I saw you guys do it, bring that kid back to life. And so my point is that shit's still real 2 years later. It doesn't go away. And I'm stereotyping, probably shouldn't do that, but boys do cry if you're being ill. And I'm like, it was tough. So I think what I'm proof pointing here is that you don't realize that shit stays with people along, their whole life. And you just think, oh yeah, boy, that must've been tough. Boy, seeing that must've been hard 2 years ago, 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, I see it. I can picture it in my head.
Yeah.
Right.
Anyway.
Well, and that gets to a great point all throughout the continuum of care. Sometimes, is there a need in the immediacy of something that happens for people to show up? Absolutely. I talk about writing down the first day, week, and month, just to keep you honest. Check in with someone the first day, drop a note in your calendar, check in with Margaret about putting her parents in memory care. Month. But sometimes people listen and they're like, oh, shoot, like I totally missed it. That was months ago. And now there's such power in circling back. And here's even how it can sound. People have done this with me. Wow, you know what? So our youngest Moses, he's had heart surgeries. I realized that Mo had heart surgery about 5 months ago. And I really meant to call or reach out. I didn't do that, but I'd still love to know, how are you guys doing? I know that was a lot for you. Like, I don't get that and go, yeah, you jerk.
Exactly,
why didn't you reach out?
Drop the ball.
Yeah, because the reality is actually people fall off. And it's just the way life and support goes. So if you're listening to this and you think, I did have that client and their parent did that and I didn't reach out, don't kick yourself too much. Just turn that into proactive intention in the next step. Like, that still matters. There's not an expiration date where it's like too late.
Man, I feel like salespeople can be so selfish too with this because they're doing the funnel review. This is the truth. I'm sorry. It just is. It's just what it is. Funnel review. So, hey, where are we at, with the P&G deal? So, the woman who's sponsoring us, her mom passed away. So, oh shoot. Okay. Well, we'll probably give her a couple weeks before you reach back out then. Like, literally, it happens all the time.
100%.
Literally, people, I definitely don't want to be, want to be sensitive to that, but definitely, want to pick up where we left off. It's just whoosh, right by it, right by it, and we think we're doing a favor giving her 2 weeks. I'm like, okay, all good, back to our deal.
Yeah. There was once a company that I worked at that I will not name, but it was like the end of the month. And, contracts were supposed to be coming in. We worked on a 30-day cycle sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I was working my territory. One of my territories was New York City or in New York. And it was Hurricane Sandy.
Oh.
And I was like, I can't reach out to these people. And they were like, yes, you can. And they were like, just can't you get to a fax machine? Can't you get to a, I am not kidding you.
A fax machine.
I know. And I was like, wait, no, I was talking to this man and he literally told me his house is gone. You think I would be like, yeah, but can you just, go on over to Brooklyn and fax me that contract? Yeah. I was mortified. I couldn't believe that people were even like, the priorities were way off. The empathy was non-existent. And it's something that is, I think, very real for people.
Right. That's in the language of avatars. That is the Buck Up Bobby or Barbara of just there is a task to be done.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's not that efficiency thinking is inherently wrong. It's again, like if that is your default all the time, it leaves people feeling like you're just processing me like a number, like you're not even seeing that. And when you're playing the long game of relationships that are a big part of why people choose to stay with a company, to move, to do that. See these moments as opportunities. See it as opportunities if you manage people, because the reality is, I mean, we can even take it at a personal level, right? My husband, he's one room over with a broken leg right now. He broke his leg at work. It was a really bad break. Yeah, it's 6 weeks with no weight bearing.
Oh my gosh.
We're maybe like a week and a half in. Is it inconvenient? Absolutely. Does it change our relational dynamic? Yes. Is it having me accomplishing less than I would expect? Absolutely. But you know what it actually is? He's like, you've cared for me so well. I will never forget this. Like, it means the work, and I can see the impact that he doesn't want that situation. I don't want that situation, but like it's solidifying something really deep in him. Like, you're not just with me for what I can do for you. Like, you're willing to be inconvenienced. And we know that in our personal lives, like when we're on either side of that. And the reality is these moments are not convenient. They will mess with your flow. You will have 12 other things to do, and you will have to manage your own, like, I thought this thing was almost signed. Are you kidding me? But like, do that internal work. And also don't miss the big part of like, these moments matter, and they can be the reason why this person stays with my brand for the next decade, or recommends 8 other people. Or, I hear, as much as I hear the horror stories of like, my last boss needed this, or I still would have been there. People also tell me, we just did an event, and then I'll pause because I'm talking a bunch, but we did an event at the Center for Performing Arts, and the CEO, Jeff McDermott, he was speaking early on in his career. He's with a major law firm here in town. He has this, his wife is pregnant. This baby dies in utero. And he's sharing this story of how the partner, the big boss, calls him in and he says, Jeff, what are you even doing here right now? And Jeff's like, this man's going to fire me. I can't believe this jerk's going to fire me. In the midst of that, he goes, you came back too early. You should be with your wife. We took up a collection. We paid, this is like 35 years ago. And and Jeff goes, I received headhunter calls all throughout my career there.
Yeah.
I would never have dreamt of I finished my entire career there. I still talk about that. And like those moments.
Chills.
They're beautiful.
That is, well, and
Stop
also
making
like
me cry.
I know.
He did. Jeff brought down the house. They were
oh my gosh, of course.
All that hardship and terribleness in like at the lack of, or at the risk of sounding really awful, can be some of the good stuff too.
Right.
Like there is so much good relationship building and trust building in all of this, like on the other side. And sometimes it just takes that awkwardness. I know, like I had a colleague who I worked with, and her father passed away. And she, someone asked her, I'm not shame anyone else because it's hard to know what to say. And she started to cry, and they were like, I'm sorry. Don't cry, whatever.
Don't cry.
And I said, I think you should. Cry. I'm not afraid of your tears.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to make me feel uncomfortable. Like, I go for it, man. Like, I don't know. And we've just been dear friends ever since.
Awesome.
And like, there's just like a wonderful bond from those things that are so terrible, but
always. These are such good things. Go ahead.
This is another just tactical thing that what you shared, Margaret, made me think of. There are moments that you should practice for, especially if you are a manager or leader. They include things like telling your team that someone is going to be out. So you check with them, how much can I share? Are you comfortable with me sharing that you're taking care of your mom at end of life? Because those moments, if we're not bringing intention them, can sound like, I cannot believe, Brian, he's got to be out. I know it's our busiest time of the year. You got everyone's going to have to carry all that stuff. And I know it's such a headache. What that subconsciously translates to everyone is if you dare to be out, we're going to talk about you like you're inconvenient, and things like that. And it just happens because people are in the churn and they're not paying attention. Practice in the mirror. Think about what you're going to say. It sounds like, you know what, guys? I know this is our busiest time of the year. Brian is actually going to be out for the next 2 weeks. Yep. He's taking care of his mom. She's got end of life stuff. And this is who we are. This is the best of who we are at the organization, because as Brian today, it could be any of us. So I know you're going through a lot. I'm your point person as your manager. I'm going to walk with you. We're going to reallocate things because this is who we are. And that signals, I've got buy-in. I'm there. And it's an aspirational moment instead of like an emotionally flooded moment.
Yes.
Totally.
They would follow you off a ledge if you did that.
Yeah.
The team, because it brings the team
100%.
together. It's just such a good thing to do. And so I hope that people listening to this, and your managers listening, or if you're not, your manager needs to hear this.
I listened to a podcast today.
Right. Like it reminded me of you. It's so weird.
That's right. I don't even know why.
Thing. And I also think that there's one of my favorite books that's helped me personally. It's called the Book of Joy. And it's actually an interview of Desmond Tutu and the Dalai Lama together. And it's the transcript of the interview.
Oh, wow.
And it tells all about their lives. You think these are two, if you study those two, you'll note that they're very jovial, happy people externally. When you see their backstories, they have lots of pain in their lives. And they talk about the difference between happiness and joy, fleeting versus being, and all this stuff. And what they say is, in both of them, there was like no hesitation. The thing that brings humans the most joy, unquestionably, is doing good, serving others, and thinking about others. And so these things that you're talking about, and it's so funny. Let's go like super tactical. How many times salespeople say, well, I don't know what to say. I need some way to stay in touch with them. Maybe I should send them some golf balls or a little camping stove that you marshmallow. How about you like remember something happened in their life and send them, I'm thinking of you note. You know what I mean? Than a freaking book or something. Now, you may not have information on all that, but I bet you do on some of them, and you haven't even thought about it.
Well, and we're talking about disruptive life events. We oftentimes think of sad things. Like, don't neglect also the things to be celebrated. And maybe people tend a little bit more towards that naturally, but be the person who's like, a new baby. Wow. That's like very exciting. Or a new relation, things like that.
Yes.
Those are also
married,
great things
in a new house.
Or maybe you celebrate the divorce. I mean, let's call that what it is, right? Congrats, right? You never know. You never know. You're free, whatever. But it's so true, isn't it? I even thought one of my really good friends, I'm friends with the guy, but I know the spouse really, really well. Yeah. And she just posted her like, I don't know how many years cancer free. I totally forgot she had breast cancer. I'm like, dang, I forgot she. Would it have been nice for me to text her like, hey, I think we're sneaking up on you, on your 2-year clean. Good for you. Hope you're doing great, whatever. Just anything, right?
And things like that also. I mean, it's a fine line. It's not deploying it just to deploy it, but
100%.
Like you do care for the, October is it breast cancer awareness month?
Breast cancer awareness month. Yeah.
There are those moments too, those like inflection points. We talked about a little bit more like comparative societies at the top of the podcast. Something, especially as I'm dealing with, somebody with a leg fracture. Margaret Mead, famous anthropologist, she was once asked in a lecture, what is the first sign of civilization? You've studied all these, remnants. And she said, without hesitation, these skeletal remains that were found. And she goes, it was a healed leg fracture. And she said, the fact that person was able to survive long enough to heal because you can't go out hunting, you can't go
Right.
gathering,
All right.
you can't get water. This was a sign that they were being cared for by their group long
Great
enough to be able to
point.
heal. That is the first sign of civilization. And when we think about giving care, like there are profound business reasons to do it. Don't just believe me. Google like Harvard Business Review.
Right.
Empathy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, like the data coming out is compelling. It's great. We're also highly evolved herd animals. Like the myth of American individualism has always been that we need each other. And especially when things go sideways more than ever.
Absolutely.
You know, don't be scared if you don't have skills. You can get better.
That's great.
This is helpful for also humanizing our prospects and our customers too, because salespeople can get one-minded, you know, and also think they're dodging me and they're ghosting me and whatever.
Right.
Sometimes they are, but also let's remember that people are whole people with a whole life and other things going on, you know, besides signing your contract.
Yes.
You know, like not only their own work, but their own issues and families and, you know, life altering things that come up, and just making sure that we are seeing them as whole individuals, because we can't just look at them with dollar signs in our eyes and be like, you know,
they know, they can feel it.
Yeah. Right.
Well, and even making that space in some of our communication, you know, that was a bit of a breakthrough. I remember being in a sales session with Blind Zebra, and we were troubleshooting this person. They're not coming back. They're, you know, what there's a deal, you know, stuck deals suck. And it was just mentioned like he's going through a lawsuit and a divorce.
Yeah.
And I was like, these are a lot of really smart salespeople. I'm just the empathy at work, you know, consultant. They're really smart. But I was like, hey, maybe they're not getting back because they have, and it was like a watershed moment as everyone was like, maybe that's it. And they go, what about an email that's like, seems like you have a lot going on between, maybe should we, and just, we don't always know the story. I mean, I've had my own deals with like that, we were right on the edge.
Right.
And then you get something 6 months later that was like, I was in a really dark space and I had to take a sabbatical from work, you know, and just all that. You don't always get that, but there's always a much bigger story.
So true. It's so true. And it's funny that as salespeople working deals, that's the stuff that comes out after talking about the deal for 50 minutes.
Right.
You know, and said, well, I do, you know, is there anything else going on? Well, I know the guy's, he's in a lawsuit, I guess, with his former employer on a non-compete.
Totally.
He's going through a divorce, but okie dokie. Thanks for not leading with that. So
right.
Yeah.
This is awesome. So Liesel, how can our listeners get a hold of you and find you?
You can check out my website, which is lieselmertes.com. We've got some great options there. I come in, I do initial keynote trainings. The best way that people work with me tends to be bundled trainings. They really get the most growth and impact. So we touch on things like human-centric skills at work, learn your empathy avatar, dealing with change fatigue. How do we handle hard better? We have some 1 day and half day training events if you just want to get your feet wet at Empathy at Work. And we've got our newest thing, which is a online self-paced offering, the Empathy at Work Accelerator. We're very excited about that. People have been asking for that for a couple of years. Dropping in November.
That's bravo to that. So, and you need to spell out Liesel Mertes for everybody, because I know they're going to be like, what did he say?
I can't even get there. What is that? Yeah, we've purchased another domain, but we haven't gotten it up and running.
Okay.
For now, Liesel Mertes, Liesel Mertes, MERT as in truck, E and S as in snake.com.
Liesel Mertes, and if you just Google Liesel Mertes, and Google should help you with that one.
It should. The Google is helpful.
We got a snort from Margaret. It's been a minute, but we know we're the Google. Yeah.
Yes.
So funny. Great. Well, you're an awesome human. We love you. You're so great, and what you do is so important. And I'm so glad you were spending some time with us today. So
great to be with you both.
And thanks for sharing all your stuff. It's really, really great. Really appreciate it. All right, that's it. We'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.
Sales Unscripted podcast. Bye.